Today on Haas's Kitchen, we are going to make grilled cheese sandwiches with a Campbell's tomato soup dip. And this is a viewer request by Morgan and Jenny. And if you like my videos, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. So here's what you're going to need. You're going to need something to cook it in. You can use a fry pan or a griddle. We're going to talk about both. And you're going to need a spatula to flip the sandwiches. You're going to need some cheese, some butter. You're going to need some white bread. And I would recommend you do not use cheap white bread or Wonder Bread. Get some good quality white bread like Pepperidge Farm or Sara Lee or something like that. You're going to need some Campbell's tomato soup to dip it in. And my secret ingredient to season them at the end is Lawry's seasoned salt. So let's get started. So step one is to preheat whatever you're going to cook it in and also get the soup going. We're using Campbell's tomato soup. We follow the directions on the can and we have it on the stove on low heat. As far as what you're going to cook it in, if you're going to use a fry pan, use the biggest one you have, preferably non-stick. And I found that medium to just a little bit below medium heat on the stove, preheat it for about a minute or two before we cook. That's going to be optimum for you. If you go too low on the heat, it takes too long. If you go too high on the heat, you're going to burn the bread before you melt the cheese. I'm going to use the griddle, and I found that 300 to 350 degrees on a griddle is optimum, and I'm using the griddle because it's easier to film. So I'm going to get this preheated for about 2 minutes, and then we'll start cooking. As my griddle's preheating, let's talk about cheese. For this sandwich, I'm just going to use Kraft American singles, and we're going to use 3 slices of cheese. In my opinion, this is the classic grilled cheese sandwich, and this cheese just melts and gets nice and gooey, and it's delicious. But that doesn't mean you can't use fancier cheeses. Some other cheeses that make really good grilled cheese sandwiches are provolone, Colby, Munster, Monterey Jack, Swiss, and Gruyere. But a tip for you is if you do use, let's say you use Munster, and you use 3 slices of cheese total. Use 2 slices of Munster and 1 slice of the Kraft singles in between, and this is going to help the other cheese melt better. So there's my cheese tip for you. My griddle's preheated now, so now I'm going to put on 2 pats of butter, and then we're going to wait for the butter to melt, and then I'm going to put the bread on. Okay, my butter's melted. Now, in order to get really good butter coverage, so we get nice golden brown on the outside, we're going to put the pieces down like this. And I found a good trick is to pick the bread up and twist it, pick the bread up and twist it, pick the bread up and twist it. And now we've got really good butter coverage on the bottom of the bread. So what we're going to do now is lightly toast the inside of the sandwich. Now, so that's going to give us toasted butter flavor on the inside and on the outside of the sandwich. So we just want this lightly toasted. Grilled cheese is one of those things I can't give you a time on when it's done because it's done when it's done. The cheese is melted when it's melted. The bread is toasted when it's toasted. But for the inside right now at this step, that's about what we're looking for, just a nice light toasting. So now what I'm going to do is take the bread off, and I'm going to add my cheese. So we want the toasted side up, and we're going to put 3 slices of cheese on there. Now I'm going to put this toasted side down. So our sandwich is made. Now we need to re-butter the pan. So I'm going to put 2 more pads of butter on there. Just like this. We're going to wait for that to melt, and then I'm going to put the bread on the melted butter. My butter is melted, and I'm now going to put the bread and the sandwich on top of the melted butter. And again, we're going to pick it up and twist it a couple times just to make sure we get good butter coverage. We're going to let it sit for about a minute or so. We're going to flip it on the other side. And if we need to add a little bit more butter, we can do that. I'm going to continue flipping it about every minute until both sides are nice and golden brown. It's been about a minute on the first side, and I'm just going to add another small pat of butter and let that melt so we can make sure we get really good butter coverage on the other side. Okay, we're going to flip it over and do the same thing. Pick it up, move it around, make sure we get nice butter coverage on both sides. And we're going to let that go for about a minute. So I've been flipping the sandwich about every minute or so, and we're almost there. And what's happening now is the cheese is oozing onto the griddle, and you can hear it sizzling. That's when you know you're almost there. And let me show you what the bread looks like. You've got that really nice golden brown color. So I'm just going to give this about another 30 seconds or so, and then we're going to cut it and eat. Okay, this sandwich is done. Both sides are nice and golden brown, and that cheese is oozing out. So we are going to move it onto a cutting board. We're going to let it rest for about a minute. Then I'm going to cut it and we're going to eat. The sandwich has been resting for about a minute. We're going to cut it. In my opinion, you got to cut it on a diagonal. So we're going to cut it. And then let's see how we did on the cheese ooze. Oh yeah, look at that. Oh, it's just oozing out. So what we're going to do is I've got some hot tomato soup here. I'm going to dip it in there. It reminds me of when I was 10 years old. That is so good. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next time on Hossy's Kitchen. We just had a Hossy blooper. I forgot to add my secret ingredient, and we already ate half the sandwich. What I would do, and I try this sometime, just sprinkle a little bit of Lawry seasoned salt on top of the grilled cheese before you dunk it in the soup, and I think you'll really like it.